Démosle entonces la bienvenida a nuestro invitado especial, el diseñador filipino Kenneth Cobonpue, quien se encuentra en Colombia gracias a la firma Matisses. Kenneth es un diseñador industrial enfocado en el mundo mobiliario. Ha sido galardonado con más de 20 premios de alto reconocimiento internacional. Sus diseños se reconocen por ser inspirados en la naturaleza y las formas orgánicas, aspecto que se relaciona con los recuerdos de su niñez y su familia. Disfrutemos entonces de esta conferencia.
Hola, buenas tardes. I would like to thank our partner in Colombia, Matisses, for bringing me here. I'd like to thank also Inexmoda for inviting me, and to all of you who've come to hear me today. So I hope that at the end of this short session, you will begin to understand a bit of my world and my design journey. So I come from the Philippines. The Philippines is a country of 7,100 islands in Asia. And I come from the middle area, which is in Cebu. It's an island that's all surrounded by water. Cebu has a lot of beautiful beaches. And I remember as a boy, I would always see the fishermen come in from the sea with their catch. And it was always beautiful to see them pulling these hand-woven fish nets. And especially when the sun hit the nets and they cast a beautiful glow, I thought that as a boy, that was very magical. These are our rice terraces. And just to show you that everything in my country is all handmade, even the planting of rice. I think you have something similar here in Colombia. And so, that's me as a boy, growing up in Cebu. And my mother was a furniture designer herself. And she made this kind of furniture back in the 80s, made out of rattan. And she has, in fact, an invention patent because of her technique of using these very, very fine wicker lines. And she would glue and nail them one by one onto a very sculptural form. So it was almost like a work of art. I grew up with her in her small workshop. And so as a boy, I was always playing and working with all these materials and experimenting. I built my own toys that rolled. Sometimes they tried to fly. And I was always working in the shop. So when I grew up, I knew that I wanted, before knowing what design meant, I knew that I wanted to make things. And my journey then started. I went to New York to study first industrial design for 4 years. And after which, I went to Germany and to Italy for further study and to work also in a crafts studio in Florence. And then I went back to Cebu. Now my training, when you study industrial design in the West, the training is always designed for mass production. It was always about designing mass-produced ugly chairs like these. And that was my training. So when I went back to the Philippines, now a country of very low technology, I was confronted with this. And here you see people were taking things from the forest and making their own walls, roof. Everything was handmade and there was no industry. But the people were very skilled. The people had a long tradition of making baskets. They were experts at weaving. So I began to ask myself, every designer wants to make a contribution to the world of design. So I asked myself, what could I do that was different in the world? I knew that the world doesn't need another chair. So if I had to do it, I had to do something very different. So one afternoon, when I was walking through the forest, I understood that what made it so beautiful was in fact the layering of these branches and twigs and leaves. And every step you took in that forest, it was magical, it was beautiful because it was all these changing patterns. And when the sunlight goes through, it's even made more beautiful because of the different shadows. So I started by using the natural materials that we had. And I started with the rattan peel, rattan skin. I made then a very simple structure made out of steel, which I then wrapped with this rattan skin. Then I took a bigger diameter rattan, and started to wind this around. And I began to experiment with structures like these that were very organic and very natural. And 14 years ago, I made my first design called the Yin and Yang. It's a very simple chair, and what was beautiful about it was that I tried to capture that feeling of the forest by trying to contain space inside my furniture. And if you see it put on a balcony like this, you see that it doesn't obstruct the light. And in fact, it allows the view, it doesn't block the view. And so I began to create other pieces from this same structure, this same principle. And this is the living room, and this is eventually the bedroom set. And people were using it in also very, very small spaces because it looked very light, because there was that very transparent effect. I looked into my culture and I saw these baskets. Baskets are very, very beautiful because the structure, the weaving made it actually very, very strong. So this is how I start my process of design. I start with the material, and then I make different experiments with structure to understand it. And so I began to make studies like this made out of rattan and abaca fiber. Abaca is the strongest natural fiber in the world. And at one point in our history, all the world's currencies, all the money, was made out of abaca because it was saltwater resistant. Also, all the ships, all the ropes before were made out of this material. So I began to use this material together with rattan to create a design that uses the principle of a basket. And this was my next design a year later, called the Balu. It was like sitting in a gigantic basket. And these are further examples. And this is the sofa and the chair. This is the abaca plant, the natural fiber. It's actually part of the banana family, but it's not as weak as a banana. So I began to now work with this material, which is, this is a natural material. It's not dyed. The skin of the abaca has a natural brown color. And I began to I made this design called the croissant. And as you can see, it uses a very, very open, transparent look, which is very clear here. You see that the light passes through. Many years ago, I was always asked, can you put your furniture outside? And as much as I wanted to use natural materials to always put outside, we know that natural materials don't last outdoor because of the sunlight and the rain. So I began to experiment also with using polyethylene as an outdoor material, outdoor fiber. And so I made the transition from indoor to outdoor by replacing the materials. Inspiration comes from everywhere, and sometimes it's as simple as a Coke can. You know? And I made this design called Lola, using rattan. I will show you later. This design won Asia's highest award for design. It's called the Design for Asia Award. And normally, this award is given to industrial products. So the past winners were Samsung, Sony, Toshiba, Hyundai tractors. And this year, they gave it to a rattan chair. It has a similar technique to the old boats, how we used to make old boats with a structure. And rattan this is rattan, this is the pole, this is the vine, it comes from the forest, then they make that straight. And it's a good material because it doesn't require, it's sustainable, and it doesn't require as much heat to bend like wood. So I made a frame like this, a structure, a very simple structure that was strong yet very light. And to make it even stronger, I took this rattan and I sliced it into several pieces to make thick strips like these. And I fastened them onto the frame. And now that really holds the frame together and makes it very strong. And I put a cushion so you can sit on it. And then for outdoors, I replaced the natural fibers with outdoor fibers. This is another design from that same collection. It's a capsule. I'm inspired by everything, by different facets of life. Just like a bowl of noodles became the inspiration for the noodle chair. And here, this is the same rattan, which when it's coiled around several times, it forms a very, very strong skin. These are the same chairs in different colors and the other pieces of the collection. On the factory, there were very, very many waste pieces of wood, very small pieces that we normally just burn for firewood. So I decided that I wanted to make a design so that I don't waste all these materials. And so I took these little pieces and start stacking them up, just like the game. Yeah, it becomes very strong when it's stacked and can become a dining table called retazo, which is a Spanish word. I'm very fascinated by structure. And this is the London Eye. It's similar structure to a bicycle. And it's always fascinating to me how very, very fine cables can support a big frame. So I made later on a design called Papillon, using the same principle of you hanging inside. The sea has always been a part of the life of our people, and many of the people are fishermen. So I would watch these nets always as a boy, and I imagined what it would be like if you sit inside a big, big net, a big, big fishing net. So I began my own experiments with wire and fabric to wrap them around. And then came my next chair called Dragnet, which is like really a big fishing net. And this is an example when it's used in a home. From the fish traps, which was part of our culture, and they're very beautiful, in fact, because they were all handmade. I made a dining table called Amaya, which has two structures, one loose and the other one tighter on the inside. And the way light plays here, when you see this table, is really beautiful. And an example is here. If you see the shadows cast on the floor, it's beautiful. I take also inspiration from other cultures, just like these boats from India. And I made my own bed called the Voyage. This bed is more popular because this is the bed that Brad Pitt sleeps on and uses. It's also in a lot of videos and movies. It's made out of steel and coconut palm. You know, the spine, the leaf of the coconut. And this is the bed. It's it's light, but it's very strong. From the Japanese art of paper folding, origami, I made a design called the dragon's tail. And that's the lamp. And these are the lamp when hung in a cluster. Nature is always a vast source of inspiration. And I'm sure those of you who are here in fashion also know that you take a lot of cues from nature. Like from the poppy plant, taking this, I made a design made out of handmade paper called a poppy lamp. From blades of grass, I made a design called the Yoda, using natural rattan. And what's very exciting and actually innovative about this chair is that when you lean back on it, the rattan, the natural strength of the rattan supports your back and flexes. And this you can't do with a synthetic material. Now, I'm very also inspired by fashion and the techniques that are being developed in constructing gowns. And so this is a design of mine called the Bloom using microfiber. And it's a very difficult chair to do because each fold I have to put like a synthetic, really fine kind of like sticks to push them into each of the folds so they will hold in place. Because obviously you have to be able to sit on it and support weight. And the same also with the leaf chair. It's actually, these are some of the pieces that are almost haute couture, meaning it's very difficult, in fact, to make. This is my modern version of sheep, called Harry. And this is the sheep in its natural habitat. I'm inspired also by cathedrals and churches and architecture. And this is called, this is in Hagia, inspired by the Hagia Sophia in Istanbul. This is an outdoor piece called the Oasis. And the Matilda, which is a design also that resembles a gigantic basket. And all these pieces use very little structure, because that's what I always try to do in my designs, to use as less material as possible. So I believe that a design is finished, not when you have when you have nothing to add, but when you have nothing left to take away. Inspired also by knitting, by sweaters. I took the pattern of these sweaters and blew them up really big to create then this newer design called cabaret, which is also used for outdoors. In the world of furniture, in the world of outdoor design, there's not much innovation really in the last years. All the outdoor furniture we know is either made out of plastic, which is not really good for the environment, or all the woven covered furniture. And so this I showed in Milan and in Paris, and this is totally something very new because it's a soft feel, a soft surface, which was unlike all the outdoor furniture we see today. This is a piece called Rapunzel, and it's also similar to like a basket which you sit in, and it's very comfortable, made out also of microfiber. Okay, this is an earlier design of mine, about 11 years ago, called Pigalle. And it uses steel, a steel frame which is hand sculpted to which I tie it down with abaca wire, abaca rope. And then the abaca rope is tied down one by one with nylon wire. And this is the sofa. And just some of the facts. This uses a hand-sculpted frame, which means that each individual line is bent on a separate jig. It has as many as 3,000 knots in the chair. And this is it when it's used, chair used outdoors. La Luna is a design, also an earlier design, which is, I just want to show you how this chair is made. One of the many examples of using natural and sustainable materials inside and out. So this is how I start. I make a frame made out of rattan that goes around, that coils around to make a shell. And then I take these shells out from the mold. In today's world, normally people would make this in resin and make them in volume because it's faster, it's cheaper. But I wanted to remain natural inside and out. So I still stick to the traditional method of using rattan. And onto this frame, I put wooden legs. I put a layer of recycled foam. And then I put a layer of jute sack. And then the weaving starts. And this is using rattan skin. And this is the weaving about 20 hours later. See? And it has a very open weave. And as the craftsman tries to finish the piece, about 40 hours later, you see that there's two patterns of the chair. One on the inside is a more tightly knit pattern, and outside is more loose. There's two patterns now have to be stitched together, just like this. Seamlessly, without any seam. And it takes a very, very high degree of craftsmanship to do this chair. In all my designs, I always try to use the craftsmanship and the skills of the people because this is our strength. And I try to make it as difficult as possible so the Chinese can't copy it. Okay. This is a wood chair called a tilt, made out of American walnut. Those of you who know how to work with wood understand how difficult it is to cut all these joints at several angles, many, many times, and they have dowels in them. And so this is the structure. It's like a miniature building and very, very fine pieces of wood to create the tilt. We have about 500 craftsmen in our factory, and only 2 can make this chair. This is another dining table called the wave, where the rhythm actually is the structure. This is the wave, same table being used. Now I wanted to show you this chair, which is not my design. It's a design by Marcel Wanders of Holland. And the design is in several museums, and it uses carbon fiber. I actually make this chair for him, and it's the lightest chair in the world. Just to show you that a high-tech material can meet a low-tech production process like weaving. And this is how it's made. We know carbon fiber as usually sheets, but it actually comes in strands, which when crisscrossed and when you use it wisely, actually uses less material than the sheets. And so this is how it goes. You'll crisscross until you create a very, very strong skin. And this is the piece then on the mold. It is then sanded. And this is the finished chair. It is a very, very light chair, which you can carry with one finger. In the last years, I created another brand called Hive to share my passion for handmade things with very, very organic materials. And so this is a lamp called a fandango, which uses cotton fiber. And I found too that the nets, the fishing wire that are used by the fishermen, actually, they give a very, very beautiful glow when you light it. And so this is made out of steel and nylon fishing wire. It's called the halo. And this is the floor version. And I always think that furniture should be an experience and should always tell stories. And as a boy, I was always imagine what it would be like to be really small. So I made later on a screen called Little People. This is a screen about this high, made up of these little people. And the craftsmen have fun doing it because they can create these people, and no two are ever alike. These are made out of wire that's dipped then in a pulp of wood, and then assembled together like that. These are planters, which resemble animals. It's called safari. And the beautiful thing about them is that you can change the character of these animals depending on the plants you put inside. Just like this here. Taking again inspiration from fashion and from knitting, from clothes, I made these lamps also called the nati, and I then decided to leave the knitting needles in place so people appreciate the work behind it. Okay, this is the vegetarian version of animal heads. And it's made out of these are actually just wire, and you plant the vines inside and they would create these different shapes. A cast paper. This is all in handmade cast paper, just in one piece, and there's an LED lamp inside. I not only design for human beings, but also for dogs, this, and cats. A few years back, I was asked to do an interiors, my first interior. And to me, I was a product designer. If I wanted to do interiors, it has to be something that's totally different, still reflecting the same aesthetic of handmade and woven, with natural materials. I was given a room up on the second floor of a restaurant, that no one really liked. It had only one window. It was very dark, and it had 4 walls. And so the only way I said I would make to make it very open was to try to create a cocoon inside. And I was going to use steel and bamboo twigs, very, very small bamboo twigs, which usually fall on the floor and people just throw away. So I created a cocoon. It's a woven, all the seats, all the walls were all woven to create a bar like this. Okay. Everything is handmade. Everything is all this fiber, and it's lit only from below with using onyx. And so what makes this interesting was that you don't feel at all the walls closing in around you, because this secondary structure, took out the difference, tried to cover where the wall ends and the ceiling starts. And it's very beautiful, especially at night when it's lit from below, because the bamboo twigs seem like fireflies. That's it. Other designers have also taken inspiration from the work that I do, and we have collaborated with also other fashion designers. And this is on the Belgian fashion runway, still using the same techniques. Last year, I decided to challenge myself, because I was actually also quite tired with only designing furniture and everything for the home. So I wanted to design a car made out of bamboo, steel, and carbon fiber. And I had only 1 month to do it, because we were going to show this in Milano. And so I started with different studies, designing, taking the usual forms from cars. And then I thought to myself, why not take an inspiration from nature and to look at leaves and shells. So I decided to use a leaf. Now we know that the automotive industry is it's one of the biggest polluters of the environment. The entire whole industry, from the production of the car to the disposal, is very harmful actually to the environment, and we have no solutions for it. So I just wanted to make this car just to challenge the whole industry by making a hand-woven, a very light shell that's powered by an electric engine. So this is the kind of the final shape, and this was the final piece, which we then built in 10 days, actually. The whole structure is made out of rattan and bamboo and tied down by carbon fiber. And when we exhibited in Milan, we had really a lot of attention. The world, the design press saw it, and even the big automotive manufacturers. I know a lot of the whole car industry now is trying to put these natural materials into interiors, but there is really no solution where there is no solution that's more, that has more depth and more than just putting it as decoration. So this was the exhibit actually in Milan. And now this car is in Germany, where they're going to put an electric engine in it, because it doesn't need a big engine because it's very light, and the carbon fiber actually makes it very, very strong. I also then designed a tricycle, okay? And it's called Eclipse. It's the same principle of you hanging inside it. And it's very light. It's made out of aluminum and outdoor fiber. It's an electric bicycle, and it has an iPod dock, it has speakers, it has cup holders, and there's a roof also that you put down. And we're trying to make this go into production. And just to show you also some of the places in the world where the furniture is, that's not all design, people actually use it. And this is in Greece, in a restaurant in Greece. This one's in Mexico, in a hotel. This is a design hotel in Portugal, which won actually the best hotel of the year. And this is the W Hotel, the Maldives. This is in St. Bart's. This is another hotel in Portugal. And this is a Nobu restaurant, the one in Dubai. We do a lot of Nobu restaurants because they share the same aesthetic as I do. And you can see that everything is also woven, made out of abaca, the seats, the ceiling. Nobu is a whole chain of Asian Peruvian cuisine. This is in Dubai at the Four Seasons. And this is the set of Ocean's 13. Okay. So that ends my presentation. And I'd just like to tell you that the reason why I'm here is because we've developed a partnership with Matisses, who's based in Colombia, who will now carry the furniture and sell the furniture starting in September. And so if you have time, please check it out. I'm very fortunate to have a partner like them who really believe in bringing fashion now into the home. Thank you.
Muchísimas gracias a nuestro invitado especial de Filipinas. A las 3:15 estaremos presentando nuestra conferencia Las marcas para el mundo de la moda. Están todos cordialmente invitados.